There is just something about this deck that just makes me want to go, hey, I'm CJ Okorjo, and today we are diving into the Final Fantasy deck called Counter Blitz. This is from a Final Fantasy focusing on one of the games. I think it's 9 or 10, correct me if I'm wrong. I have not played this one, I have played some Final Fantasy games. But in this, I'm going to be going over the commander, the sub-commander, the context of the deck to answer the question, is this deck worth it? When it comes to this, I'll be going over a lot of the cards, but I won't be focusing on the characters themselves, because I only know from this, especially, the main team you build around. There's a lot of Final Fantasy characters I have no clue about, so when it comes to this, it'll be the card itself, like its abilities and stuff like that, the variations of arts that come with it, and then just how powerful and how good this deck synergizes together. But before we jump into the cards themselves, I do need to do a little ad thing, which is my little store where I make t-shirts and hoodies for people to enjoy. They come with cool designs and are very comfortable, so if you like what I do, please go get yourself something nice. There will be a link down below for you to help out the channel. So now going back into the deck itself, starting off with the commander, and the commander of the deck is Tidus, Yuna's Guardian. For a green, white and a blue, you get a legendary creature, human warrior that is a mythic. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may move a counter from target creature you control onto a second target creature you control. Cheer. Whenever one or more creatures you control with counters on them deal combat damage to a player, you may draw a card and proliferate. Do this only once each turn and is a 3/3. To be honest, I would love this to be green, red and blue, mainly because I think this would have gone really good in an Anima deck, and I love Anima. But yeah, he's all smiles, but don't let that fool you. This guy wants to spread counters like he's coaching a blitzball team. His first ability lets you move counters from one creature onto another at the start of combat, which is very powerful because it's not just when people think counters, they always think of 1/1 counters. It is any form of counters. You play something that has a shield counter on it, you can move it onto your commander. You have something that gives a death touch counter or a lifelink counter, you can move it around to your strongest and biggest creature. That's what's really good about this, the fact that it's very good to synergize cards. Plus, it doesn't say that it can already have counters on it, so if you have a creature with 3 or 4 1/1 counters on it, you can keep putting 1/1 counters on that creature. To be honest, when it comes to this, I would be focusing on the different variations of tokens more than +1/+1. Also, correct me if I'm wrong here, because I haven't looked up the ruling or anything, but if you have 2 planeswalkers, are you able to put a loyalty counter from one of them onto another? But the second bit of it is probably where my favourite part of this card lies, which is in the cheer effect. Mainly because you get to draw, which is very good in Magic Gathering, and then also proliferate. So again, if you move the 1/1 counter from one planeswalker onto another, you then get to proliferate it again, which is closer for it to ult. I really do like this ability because it's also beneficial because it kind of makes the deck more aggro and can scale faster. Which then also on your main phase 2, if you draw anything that gives additional counters or additional proliferate, is very good for this deck. Tidus awards smart board setup, synergizing creatures, and honestly, it's just kind of a fun play, and it feels like a puzzle that when you work it together with other cards can really pay off, and that's what I like when it comes to deck building. Now when it comes to itself, me being a nerd that likes kind of really anything, I have watched people's opinion pieces and the story of this Final Fantasy throughout the years, and I know the classic laugh and stuff, and I do know the story and how it goes, but I've just personally never played it myself. To be honest, I don't want to play blitzball because I heard it's a pain, but I also heard you can hide behind the gold circle. But then with every commander there is a sub-commander, and the sub-commander of this deck is Yuna Grand Summoner. For 1 generic, a green, a white and a blue. You get a legendary creature, human cleric, that is a mythic. Grand Summon. Tap. Add 1 mana of any colour. When you next cast a creature spell this turn, that creature enters with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever another permanent you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, if it had 1 or more counters on it, you may put that number of 1/1 counters on target creature and is a 1/5. Usually when it comes to decks like this, there is a commander that does something and then a sub-commander that does something similar but are very different, that you can build it in two separate ways. But usually then the synergy is hard to do. I actually do think that this is very close. I do think when it comes to both of them, you can have the deck build roughly the same and then just switch out which one you want as your commander at the time, which is really good deck building in my personal opinion. I've seen people that have commanders in their deck, they have like 4 or 5 and they pick but leave the other 4 cards in their deck. They can just switch around depending on how they feel. So I really do like the synergy of the commander and sub-commander, but also that's how they're supposed to be like in the game. Tapping for 1 mana of any colour and then giving 2 1/1 counters onto the creature is very good, but it also says to me with the commander and the sub-commander that this is going to be a very creature heavy deck, which is fine, but it's just showing the focus on it. The one thing I kind of really like about this is the feel of you playing multiple creatures and then watching them die, protecting one as much as possible for that when other creatures die, you then start stacking on the 1/1 counters onto the one big creature, which again is a very cool strategy. I really do like this. I did originally think maybe Graveyard Recursion would go well in this, however I do find that you kind of need her to tap, so having cards that when you play from your graveyard will not get the additional 1/1 counters made me think, no, this deck's actually really good the way it is, we didn't need to add an extra pip. I also think this goes very well in just the 99. If you have 3 color decks that can run her, I recommend running her in majority of decks like this because the payout is really good. So now let's go on the context of the deck itself, starting off with creatures. When it comes to this, there's a total of 35 creatures. Again, whoppingly going to be a lot because of the 2 characters we've seen. Where straight off the bat, I say a lot of these will have 1/1 counters and different counters and ways to benefit both the commander and sub-commander, but also at the same time can carry their own weight. Because these line up, I say this deck can ramp very fast. But if you have no clue what creatures are in this deck, you get creatures just like Oran Venerated Guardian, Chocobo Knights, Gata and Luzu, Lord Jaiskull Gudo, Summon Ixion, Summon Yojimbo, Lulu Stern Guardian, Owaka Traveling Merchant, Ryu Resourceful Guardian, Summon Veilfall, Master Seymour, Summon Magu's Sisters, Tommel Seymu's Butler, Shilinda Waven Arcalite, Sin Unending Cataclysm, Waka Devoted Guardian, Lumious Broodmouth, Scholar of New Horizons, Sunscorch Regent, Chasm Skulker, Bane of Progress, Forgotten Agent, Generous Patron, Gyre Sage, Incubation Druid, Rampant Rejuveant, Timeless Tracker, Altered Ego, Phantom Mage, and Walking Ballista. When it comes to this, I do find the creatures to be very solid. It's not just a power of value cards, which I really like. Most of them rather give 1/1 counters or award you for having 1/1 counters, or any other form of counters, or explode with the amount you get to proliferate. You get a lot of heavy hitters in this deck, which I really do appreciate and like. A lot of support pieces, which I do think goes really well, especially with the card draw from your commander, and it gives your handful on your board meaningful, with also a large amount of threats thrown on top. When it comes to the characters, there is a few I've seen and know of, but nothing that I know too deep about. But I do think from someone who's kind of dipped their toes in Final Fantasy, this deck will be bought by a lot of people who are big fans of that game. And then Walking Ballista and Forgotten Ancients are just amazing cards to put into decks like this that can go off crazy amounts. You can kind of see from the creatures alone what the game plan is and stuff like that, which I do really appreciate, and it's literally built the deck perfect. There would be some changes I would put in, but that's just mainly because some of the cards I would probably put in would be a little bit more expensive, which again, I know this is a pre-con, so they won't do that. But secondly, we are on to the spells of the deck. When it comes to spells, there's 15 in total, but you get spells just like Protection Magic, Yuna's Whistle, Pull from Tomorrow, Endless Detour, Yuma's Decision, Collective Effort, damning verdict, farewell, and promise of loyalty. Honestly, when it comes to a lot of counters moving around, stuff like that, I thought the spells would be weaker than this. There is Farewell, which is one of the most powerful spells in the game and it's very, very popular, but also has some new cards that are also really cool. I do like this, and I do think a lot of the focus is based on the story, especially with the 2 Yuma cards, but I do appreciate when it comes to that little kind of storytelling when it comes to the deck. There's probably a little bit more better draw in my opinion that could have been put in, but to be honest the hard focus isn't on the draw, so I do understand why Pull from Tomorrow is the only kind of draw card here. But to be honest, I'm more happy that there isn't like a Swords to Plowshare or a Sun Titan when it comes to this. So I'm happy with the way this deck is being built. So with that, we're going on to enchantments. When it comes to enchantments, there is 9 in total, which is shocking because the other 2 decks had none and very few. So it's good to see that there's actually some enchantment love in this Final Fantasy deck set. But you get enchantments just like Summon Ascending, Sphere Grid, Resourceful Defense, Together Forever, Inexorable Tide, Fight Ring, Hardened Scales, and Path of Discovery. I do think Hardened Scales is pretty much a must when it comes to the Commander and Sub-Commander, but the rest of the enchantments were very pleasing and also very good cards. It also adds consistency, value, and then a steady advantage that your opponents will struggle with. My only thing, and I hope they do this, but I know they haven't, is Fight and Ring with Hideaway, but I do think Hideaway is a very good thing for this deck. Kind of cheating out stuff with Hideaway abilities would have been good, so I do think adding in the 3 Hideaway lands, or at least the green one, would have been a really good option, but spoiler alert, they did not do that. So now that that's done, let's go on to the artifacts of the deck. When it comes to the artifacts in this deck, there is 4, but there's only one I would like to talk about, and that card is Blitzball Stadium. For X and a blue, you get an artifact that is a rare. When this artifact enters, support X. Go for the goal for 3 and tap it. Until the end of turn, target creature gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player. Draw a card for each kind of counter on it, and it can't be blocked this turn. This card, in my opinion, is hilarious. The first thing that popped into my head was adding a Golter into this deck. I love Golter. Paying for Golter and then paying for this to put even one 1/1 counter on it, then putting a Death Touch, Lifelink, Shield counter on it as well, then doing a large amount of damage that's unblockable, then drawing a load of cards. This, in my opinion, is absolutely hilarious and also would be really good in an Animar deck if you're able to put other counters on it as well. Making your commander unblockable is hilarious, and then drawing a bunch of cards from it. So I really do like this, but I also know that when it comes to the Blitzball Stadium itself, not the card, people do rather love Blitzball or hate Blitzball. So let me know which one you actually prefer in the comments down below. And then finally, to wrap this all up, we are on to the lands. When it comes to this, there's 37 lands in total, but you get options just like Canopy Vista, Flooded Grove, Fortified Village, Glacial Fortress, Hinterland Harbour, Overflowing Basin, Port Town, Prairie Stream, Skycloud Expense, Sungross Prairie, Sunpetal Grove, and Vine Glimmer Snarl. A lot of these are great fixes, a lot of these are great cards. I love the filter lands. Again, filter lands are probably my favourite lands of all time, and I do think they are doing a lot better when it comes to putting lands in these type of decks. I don't have any complaints when it comes to the lands as a whole, but I do think putting in the Hideaway lands for this deck would have been good, or at least the green one. Maybe putting in a land or two that could potentially give 1/1 counters. I know there is a few bad green ones that do it, like I know there's one that if you tap it, you get to put a 1/1 counter on a creature that enters this turn, but you don't get to add a mana for it. So again, you're paying one of the lands extra to put an extra 1/1 counter on it. Or there's one with gift that it has a 1/1 counter on it and you're able to gift it onto another thing. Cards like that might have been a little bit funny, especially if they made a Final Fantasy variation of it. So my thoughts and opinions on this deck as a whole, and then I'm going to rank it. So right off the bat, not as a Final Fantasy player all over a Final Fantasy, just as a deck itself, I do like the Commander and Sub-Commander. They are very powerful. I do like a lot of the creatures, they are very beneficial, and a lot of annoying cards that people do enjoy in this game. The artifacts, in my opinion, are the weakest point, but come with a very strong artifact, so I'm not going to complain there. Then enchantments are better than the other two decks, and then the spells and sorceries are quite good for what you're getting. Lands are quite good, very good, are doing in the right direction, but in my opinion, out of the 3 decks I have recorded, probably the weakest out of the 3. A lot of 1/1 counters, a lot of synergy, and a lot of good ability this deck has. So overall, I would give this possibly an 8.6. But if you think I'm wrong, let me know what you would give it down in the comments down below. And tell me why you gave it that kind of grade. While you're down there, remember to like and subscribe and do all that YouTube stuff we always annoy you for. And as always, if you like this Final Fantasy deck review, I have last week's. Here, a playlist of all the Is It Worth It stuff I make here, and a subscribe button here, and I shall see you all in the next video.